Hello, this is David Havlicek, and this is my design approach for the Arizona Falls tree project. Overall, the site rests between pretty much all the different urban centers and the larger mountainous areas in the northern and northeast area of Phoenix. Better shown in my site collage, it is south of Camelback Mountain and boasts some impressive views of the mountainous area. It also has urban center visibility for the Phoenix area, Tempe area, and also the overall mountainous areas to the south and east as well. But most impressive, most close is Camelback Mountain. So throughout the project, one of my main design intents was to focus towards the north. And this is further shown in some of the imagery from Google Earth of different perspectives looking towards the site, the park area currently. The top left is facing directly north from the road that is south of the site, and that is the direction I really wanted this canopy structure, this community structure to be facing. These are our program spaces that were devised, and I generally kept the overall shape of these spaces throughout. But what did change was the overall canopy footprint. Before I was experimenting with trying to devise a way to get northern views from a couple different distances from the canal, because there's a pedestrian walkway going around the canal, and I didn't want residential areas perhaps being butt up next to the potentially louder area or from prying eyes. I also was considering parking at the time, and it was becoming overcomplicated in form. The form wasn't serving much of a function, rather than simply devising something that was interesting and appealing to the eye. So from advice from my instructor, I went towards a more simplistic route, and I started with a sketch, and that's shown on the the right side of this presentation. And what I liked about the canopy presentation that was done by Hoffman was there were two different slides, one showing just some generic pictures, some stock photos of certain canopy structures, and one that showed more in particular the roof structures that you could choose, the roof forms that you could choose to go forward with. And I really liked the idea of having a triangulated roof, and the more I thought about it, it can curve, and it can better suit the curvature of the canal, and it doesn't curve a perfect 45 degrees. It's a unique angle. So these triangles allow you to slowly approach the acute angle or obtuse angle, so that it's not a perfect 90 degrees as sketched below, but we'll see later that it does help form with the curvature of the canal better. This was the programs divided in 3D over my original footprint. I kept the spacing and the general ideology of how these spaces should be divided the same, but the footprint of the canopy changed significantly. So that's something that I ended up changing to be a more simplistic approach, but also to better suit the overall area that's now more efficient. It's all combined. There's no weird cutouts. It's all simplified. This large multi-use space is very well divided from the rest of the area, and my thinking was that there should be a lot of outdoor areas or protected under the canopy surrounding this outdoor multi-use space, and it can be considered overflow area for the large room if needed. And there's also, facing the radial grid of the canopy, is a very open structure at the main floor, and this allows for further seating for what I determined to be the kitchen and cafe area. And this can be used to complement those people who maybe want to eat but see a Camelback Mountain to the north, or just to better bring in almost as a lobby, as a greeting area for people who are coming from the pedestrian walkways around the canal. So from the second floor, I was devising a plan to get the group apartment being put above, facing directly to the north, bolstering those views. But being at the second level, I was hoping to isolate a lot of that noise. And then this is the housekeeper apartment, and so this elevator here really suits the residential areas that are very well divided from these multi-use bathroom and club spaces, which primarily have this elevator and can use both staircases efficiently. However, this elevator is available to use for everyone. So here you can better see the wishbone columns that I have implemented into the triangulated canopy structure, and it continuously or effortlessly lifts the canopy while decreasing the amount of obstructions at the main floor, especially by one column. But there is this odd angle in the columns that has to be suited within the walls. So the walls are more of an infill between some of these the curved part of this precast concrete column would be almost more of an infill wall, and it would be harder to construct windows in those spaces. So that's something I thought about and tried to keep walls off of these columns because they're aesthetically pleasing, but I would imagine harder to work around in terms of interior wall construction. Anyways, looking at first the floor plates and the columns, you can see that the western end of the building is certainly much more open, trying to be, as it's the large multi-use space that I wanted to potentially be for even larger events than maybe what was programmed, just by having overflow space and potentially larger doors that can open up into maybe a gallery or seating as needed. And then the eastern end is certainly much more busy, first floor plate wise, but I did attempt to divide the spaces up with the circulation, and there are even some open spaces going down to below. Even the small multi-use spaces are different. They're not directly on top of each other, and this was all to cater to the views. If you see the wishbone columns here, they can't be perfectly on top of each other, or one small multi-use structure won't be able to, the view will be directly in front of the columns. So I put them kind of like zigzagged on top of each other so they cater to the views of the column. Here's the complete rendering of the isometric. And looking more at the floor plan, possibly easier to read now without all the grids and such. It is really open centrally, and half of the space for the large multi-use, and that was the intention. I thought these small multi-use spaces would do better disconnected from each other, and finally circulation, elevators and stairs going to the second floor. I wanted to be efficient as possible And by kind of putting this area a little bit more denser, we can bring people up much more efficiently. I mean, if you have a specific place you need to go, club or multi-use, it is very straightforward in getting there by having a more compact form. It also is able to disconnect the group apartment, which overhangs a little bit more towards away from all the multi-use spaces. And this is just looking overall at the canopy roof structure, which is a little complex due to the three different grids. And back at the sections again with some detailing. And looking at shading, it does have, because of the triangulation at the tips, a little unique shading to the north. This is during the summer solstice. And it doesn't go too far as to protrude into the pedestrian walkway surrounding the canal, but it is certainly close enough to bring in from the 6 proposed entry locations. I tried to keep the building as far away as possible from Indian School Road, and by adapting to the curvature of the canal, I think it effectively does that. And yeah, that's my overall design for the tree project. Thanks for listening, and any feedback would be appreciated.